Most people think getting rich is a moment, something clear and obvious, a point in time where you can look at your life and say, this is it. This is when everything changed. But the reality is very different. Because if you're waiting for that moment, there's a good chance you'll never realize it already. Started a long time ago. In your most ordinary days, in the smallest decisions, in habits you barely even notice. And that's the most dangerous part of this entire process. Because you can be making real progress while feeling like you're standing still is less than #0. 65 hash is greater than, and that feeling causes a lot of people to quit right before things start to work. Because they measure progress through emotion instead of reality. Even though emotion is always the last thing to catch up in the process of building wealth, imagine two people starting at the same point. Same income, same age, same opportunities, but they see money completely differently. The first person focuses on enjoying the present. He upgrades his lifestyle whenever he can. He believes that if you work hard, you deserve to spend, and that sounds reasonable. It feels right. It's even encouraged by society, because it creates the feeling of success immediately. While the second person takes a different path. He holds back. Not because he doesn't enjoy spending is less than #0. 65 hash is greater than, but because he understands that every financial decision isn't just about the present. It's a trade-off with the future. And the ironic part is that in the early years, the first person looks like he's winning. His life is more exciting, more visible, more impressive from the outside. While the second person looks almost ordinary, maybe even boring. Maybe even like he's missing out. But if you extend that story over a few years, things begin to flip. And when that shift happens, it doesn't come with noise or drama or a clear turning point. It happens quietly. Gradually is less than #0. 65 hash is greater than, until the gap becomes too large to ignore. One of the first signs of that shift is that your life starts to feel less dramatic. And that might sound negative, but it's actually a very strong signal. Because most of what we call financial drama is really just a lack of control. Impulsive decisions, emotional spending, reactions instead of intentions. And when those things start to disappear, your life becomes calmer, more stable, less chaotic. But that calmness can trick you into thinking nothing is happening. Because we've been conditioned to associate progress with excitement, even though real is less than #0. 65 hash is greater than sustainable progress, rarely feels exciting. It feels steady. And steady doesn't impress you in the moment, but it builds everything over time. This difference becomes most obvious when unexpected problems show up. Because problems never disappear. No matter how much money you have, life will always find ways to be expensive. But what changes is how you experience those problems. When you don't have control, every small issue feels like a crisis. Not because of the amount itself, but because you don't have the buffer to absorb it. And when that happens, money turns into stress, anxiety, pressure that lingers. But when you start building a stable system, that same problem becomes manageable. It doesn't ripple through your entire life is less than #0. 65 hash is greater than. It doesn't create panic. It gets handled and you move on. And the moment a problem stops disrupting your life is the moment you're much further ahead than you think. But getting to that point requires overcoming something most people never get past. And that's avoidance. Because looking at your finances directly is uncomfortable. It forces you to face your habits, your patterns, your decisions over time. And that's why many people choose not to look at all. Because if you don't look, you don't have to deal with it. But that simple act of paying attention is one of the most powerful things you can do, because you can't improve what you don't see. And once you start paying attention, even in a basic way, you begin to notice patterns that were always there is less than #0. 6-5 hash is greater than small leaks. Repeated behaviors, unnoticed decisions that quietly shape your financial life over time. Another major shift happens when you create space between wanting something and acting on it. Because before, desire leads directly to action. You want something, you buy it. You feel good for a short time, and then it fades, and the cycle repeats. But when you pause, when you question that impulse, you create a gap that didn't exist before. And inside that gap is control. You can still choose to buy, but now it's intentional, not reactive. And every time you don't immediately act on impulse, you're building a form of discipline that no one can see, but that changes everything is less than #0. 6-5 hash is greater than, because that ability to delay is what separates people who build wealth from people who just spend money. All of this eventually comes down to one simple but powerful idea: the gap. The gap between what you earn and what you keep. Because income alone doesn't create wealth. It creates potential. But the gap determines whether that potential turns into something real. And the interesting part is that when income increases, the gap doesn't automatically grow with it. In many cases, it disappears, because higher income makes it easier to justify higher spending. You upgrade your lifestyle, you adjust your expectations, and before you realize it is less than #0. 6-5 hash is greater than you're living a more expensive version of the same life. And that's the most dangerous trap. Not when you don't have money, but when you start making more without changing how you think. The moment your income increases is often seen as progress. But it's actually a test, because it gives you a choice. You can expand your life outward, or you can build your foundation deeper. And those two directions lead to completely different outcomes. One gives you immediate satisfaction but no long-term change. The other feels slower, less exciting, but compounds into something meaningful over time. At a certain point, if you stay on the right path, your relationship with money begins to change. It stops being something you use to prove something or to feel something, and starts becoming something that gives you options. And that's the most important shift. Because when money gives you options, it stops being the goal and becomes the tool. And when that happens, you stop asking, "Can I afford this?" and start asking, "Is this worth what it costs me in the future?" And that single question can completely change your life. The hardest part of this entire process is that it doesn't give you immediate validation is less than #0. 6-5 hash is greater than, there's no applause. No clear signals. No moment where everything clicks. And that's why so many people quit. Not because it doesn't work, but because it doesn't feel like it's working. even though the most important changes are happening beneath the surface, quietly building, compounding, waiting for the moment when they finally become visible. So if you look at your life and it feels slower, quieter, less dramatic, if you feel like you're not making the kind of progress you expected, there's a strong chance you're actually moving in the right direction. Because real wealth doesn't show up all at once. It builds in the background, through small decisions that don't feel important in the moment, through discipline that no one notices, through consistency that doesn't feel exciting, until one day you look back and realize everything changed a long time ago. Because the truth is, you don't become rich in a single moment is less than #0. 6-5 hash is greater than you become rich in the days where nothing special seems to happen, in the choices that no one sees, in the times you choose not to take the easy option. And when all of those moments add up, they create a result that looks like an overnight success from the outside. But you know it wasn't. You know it started long before you ever felt it. Right now, things feel slow. If you feel like you're not where you want to be yet, understand that this feeling isn't necessarily a sign that you're doing something wrong. In many cases, it's the exact opposite. It's a sign that you're building something real. Something that won't disappear, something that takes time. And when you understand that, you stop relying on how things feel to decide whether you're making progress. You keep going. You stay consistent. And over time, that consistency becomes the difference that most people never reach.